right, for those of you who are new to the channel, welcome. For those of you who are regular viewers, welcome back. My name is Des Trendle. I'm a 57-year-old triathlete based in Brisbane, Australia, who juggles family work with training. So today I wanted to do a little video, as you can see, while I'm driving, just to use up the time. Because as I said, I'm juggling work with training, and we all know what that's like, and especially when you're juggling work with Ironman training and trying to put that 12 to 20 hour weeks in and be consistent with those weeks as well. So what I wanted to do very quickly in this video is I just wanted to talk about something that I've been thinking about for the last day or so. You see, on Sunday I raced at the Queensland Tri Series Race 5, which was a club distance event. So it was an 800 metre swim, 24k bike ride, and a 6k run. Now, I'd done this event before, back 13 months ago, back in December the year before. So, not this January, sorry, we go back 13 months. So, what I did then was around an hour 31, which was a 4th place in my age category. So coming this last race, which was, we're on Tuesday now, so Sunday a few days ago, I ended up doing a time of 1 hour 18 minutes and running first in my age category. And that age category, by the way, is the old blokes, talking 55 to 59. So we're not at the very pointy end of the race overall, but we're consistently putting in some good races given our age. Now, what I wanted to talk about in that was the difference in my training, and how I feel that's been of a benefit in this prep. So we go back 13 months ago. I was doing a lot of training, and I guess both my swimming, I was doing a lot of 50s, a lot of 100s and things like that, and I was working quite hard in the pool. If we look at the bike, same thing, I'd go out and you try not to, but you get caught up, there's someone's up the road a little bit, so you start chasing even though you're not riding with them, it's still just a carrot dangling in front of you. And the run was pretty much the same. I was going out doing a few park runs, and even my training runs, when I look back at that data, the runs were way too hard, too often, especially given that then I was 56, now I'm 57, and the recovery just isn't there. As much as you think you're still in your 20s, and our mind tells us we're still a kid, our body is telling us otherwise. It's telling us that we're not. We need to think about that differently. And the way I trained in my 20s, and just a bit of a background there, my first triathlon was when I was 13 down in Japan in Sydney, and I think it was about 82 or 83. I attempted, and I say attempted, my first Ironman at a stupidly young age of 16 in about 83, I think it was, in the Triple M Ironman in Sydney, and I failed to finish that. I did get 14k into the run before literally they put me in an ambo and took me to Manly Hospital, fully dehydrated and completely exhausted. And it took me till about 92 to get back and to finish an Ironman. So I did take a few lessons from that, but I'm a very, very slow learner. So, but going back to what I was talking about, I believe, especially after our 50s, and maybe this applies to the 30s and the 40s and the 20s as well, is that we can tend to train a little too hard, especially as age groupers. And it leaves us sore, it leaves us tired, and especially if we are juggling family and work and the other things that are associated with our lives. There's this day and age, the cost of living and everything like that. Here I am doing a 30-minute drive into the city myself at the moment, so that puts a lot of stress and a lot of strain, and that takes away from our recovery. So we have to be very mindful of that. And I was listening to a podcast this morning when I was running, and it said our fitness isn't gained in the training, our fitness is gained in our recovery. And look, I already knew that. We periodise our training. We do, a build of a few weeks and then an easy week. And that easy week is where our fitness comes. But we also, I think, we fall short as we look at those build weeks, and we do a lot of very hard work in those build weeks, and probably not enough recovery. So when I look back at what I've done differently from the hour 31 race and this same distance, same race, same course, an hour 18, and if you benchmark it against the results, first place over fourth place, is firstly my weight. Go back 13 months ago, I was still dropping weight. When I started back training 3 years ago, I just finished training horses. I was a thoroughbred racehorse trainer, and I'd done that for a lot of years, and in that time I ballooned up to 104 kilos. I'd still only 13 months ago dropped down to 93 kilos, and in fact I did Paul Macquarie in 2024 at that weight and really struggled to go around the course. So as you're older, as we all know, it does take a lot to drop that weight. Well, it does for me anyway. I'm not saying everyone's in the same boat, but I find it a little hard to drop the weight, especially if you want to eat food, which we do, and we get quite hungry when we train. So if we look at where I'm at now with my weight's down to 79, 78 kilos, depending on the day, and it's dropping even sort of further, which I put that down to just being a bit stricter with my diet. And in fact, the last 4 or 5 weeks, I've gone on and just had that light and easy, which is a 7-day meal plan I do here in Brisbane, dropped off to my doorstep each week. And I know that my daily, I'm getting 1,500 calories, and I'm supplementing that with a little bit of calories during my training sessions as well, because even if we look at this morning's 90-minute run, there was 1,092 calories consumed in that. So if I'm only consuming 1,500 calories for the day, I'm probably going to feel quite flat later this afternoon. And today, my work shift, I'm leaving home at 10 o'clock, and I won't get home till probably 6:30, maybe 7, maybe a bit earlier if I'm lucky. So you've still got to juggle that as well, and that's a bit of a fine line, because you're going to get very tired if you don't eat enough, and you're also not going to get the best recovery and the best ability to back that training up into your sessions. In my case, it'll be a swim session tomorrow. So there's one of the reasons that if we look at the difference in performance, obviously weight does play a crucial part, especially in the run. I look at the time differences. I was 7 minutes quicker in the run. And if I went back and looked at the Garmin heart rate files, I was at exactly the same heart rate average 13 months ago as what I was on Sunday. So that's just a massive difference, and I put that down to I'm better trained as far as aerobic efficiency is concerned, and I'm going to talk about that in a sec. But also I'm not carrying as much weight, having dropped, what are we talking there? 93, quite down to 78, quite a bit of weight. So the other factor I'm going to put down is I was training through after that till about March, and then I had a crash on the bike, and that forced me to have a decent sort of off-season. I had 8 weeks where I couldn't do anything. Literally, I was on crutches, and I was hobbling around for those 8 weeks. So I was forced until about June to have a bit of a break. And not that I had much before that, but I trained through to Ironman. I'd done about 12 months into Ironman in 2024, and then continued through for the next sort of season, and was working through to do Cairns, initially Macquarie, then Cairns, and then had the bike crash and got injured. So there was that forced rest as well, which I feel helped. I feel was sort of other benefit. So, now the other reason would be my endurance base. So what's been a lot different with this prep, when I started back in June, I still couldn't run until probably the end of July. So I was only swimming and biking, which was, as we know, a bit of unless you're falling off, no impact type or low impact type activities. So the swim was good. I was able to sort of concentrate, and I changed my swimming to where I was slowing the swimming down and doing a lot more technique work. And even my favourite swim set at the moment is I do a 400-metre warm-up, and then I do sets of 200s. But I swim them at what I feel would be a comfortable Ironman pace swim. And then I have a 45-second rest after each one, and then I do another. And if I'm feeling good, it's not about going harder, it's about adding more 200s to the set. And I'm very conscious of that fatigue level. When you feel that your form's going in your fatigue, you know it's time for you to cool down and get out of the pool. So if we look at the bike, I've been a lot more consistent too with the bikes. And once again, slowed the bike down, stop chasing people up the road, drop that ego. And I know, man, I'll say it, there is an ego factor. We don't like being passed. We like to feel that we're all the warriors, but sometimes leave it for race day. So a lot of my rides, and I'll talk about yesterday, I did a 90-minute ride, and yesterday was Monday, so it was the day after the Rainy Bay race. And my average heart rate was like 111, 112 for the 90 minutes. And average power was 130s, high 130s, low 140s. So right down there in that lower zone 2 level for me. And you get off it and you actually feel like you could have gone further. That's when you know the session's been done right. But it's banking that endurance is the important thing. And it's been the same with my running. And I haven't gone in and I haven't just ramped my running up. Obviously coming back and it was a fairly substantial injury, and it was a strain, not a break I got when I did crash the bike, but it was in the left sort of upper leg groin area, and it did cause a little bit of flexibility issues as well, so I've had to work on that. But I've had to build that running up, and I've built it up slowly. You go out and you'll be running at a very slow, what almost feels like a walking pace, and keeping an eye on that heart rate. And remember the heart rate does lag a little bit, so you've got to let the heart rate settle, especially when you first kilometre or so. It might spike up a bit and then it'll settle down. But once it settles down, then just concentrate on keeping it in those low things. And I've done a good 90% of my running in that lower zone 2. So I'll be running along at 120, 125 beats per minute heart rate. And in recovery runs, I'll be running 110 to under the 120, and I'll almost be walking. But that's okay because you're still getting the benefit from that. As you get fitter, you're increasing your distances. So at the moment, we're 19 weeks out from Ironman Cairns, and my long runs, I'm going up to an hour and 45 minutes. And I'll eventually, in the next few weeks, increase those back up to around that 2-hour mark. The second run of the week, I'm doing a 1-hour run or a 1-hour 30 run, depending on how I feel. If I go out and I'm feeling good in the legs and I'm not getting too much cardiac drift in the last part of the run, I'll run to 1 hour 30 or 90 minutes. Once again, keeping it in the zone 2, and I'll run it 1 hour if I'm feeling a bit heavy in the legs or a bit tired. So don't be afraid to call that as well. But the other thing that I've found this year that I'm wearing I've got a Garmin watch, and I'm wearing it in bed of sleep. I didn't really think that I would do that, but to be honest, it hasn't even worried me. I've been even thinking about it. I've never liked sort of watches and stuff when I'm sleeping, but the benefits of that is that I'm getting my heart rate variability scores. So when I wake up in the morning, I know what my training is going to be for that day. Like I woke up this morning, I knew my training was going to be a 90-minute zone 2 run. I knew I was coming off the back of a race on Sunday. Yesterday I did a 90-minute bike ride and a 2,600 metre swim. So I've got to be mindful of my recovery as well. So first thing, wake up, I look at my watch, I look at the heart rate variability. I then open the Garmin app and I look at my sleep score, and I look at my body battery, I think it's called. I actually take screenshots of those and I upload them I use Abacus AI, and I use it as almost a reference point. I tell it what I'm planning for today. I say I've got a 90-minute run plan in a zone 2. Here's my heart rate variability. Here is my sleep score. Here is my body battery. Do I have a green light for this, or should I be reducing the session? And it's a very, very powerful tool. I think it's one that, we didn't have this 10 years ago. We were talking to coaches, we were right, but it just gives you that instant contact. And I found it to be very reliable. Like Christmas Day, I got a bit fluey. Within a few days, I was 3 days in bed. And it picked it up. It could pick that up in my heart rate variability even a few days out. And it was tapering back my sessions based on the fact that I could see that I was sliding in. And it turned out to be a bit of a respiratory illness that got into my lungs as well, which wasn't good, but fully recovered. So I guess what I'm saying there is look at your training. Be mindful, especially if you're an over 50s triathlete, be mindful of the fact that we do need to look at our training differently than what we did in our 20s, 30s and 40s. Also, don't be afraid to use the technology out there. There's things like ChatGPT. I've just switched from that to the Abacus AI. I found it, I'm still getting to know it, but I think ChatGPT was $33 a month. Abacus AI selects the best AI based on what you're looking at doing, and that was $10 a month. So I'm giving that one a try, and so far I've found the results pretty good. So the other thing is 90% is in that zone 2. I'm going to give you a little example here of I do one run a week, and because I am training for Ironman, I'm training. I'm training to run in a fatigue state. Let's put it this way: no one gets off the bike at an Ironman and runs a PB best marathon time as if they were running a straight marathon. We're all running in a complete state of fatigue, especially when we hit that 30k mark when most people's wheels fall off. And I can tell you mine have done that a few times as well. So one run a week, I will generally go out, I'll do a bit of a warm-up, and then I'll do longer sessions. So they won't be flat out, they'll be at about 90% of what I feel. I'll be concentrating on my form and on my breathing, and I'll run for 4 minutes. I'll walk, recover for 2 minutes, and then I'll run for 4 minutes again. And it'll vary. Sometimes I'll do 4, sometimes I'll do 5, sometimes I'll do 6, depends on where I feel I am in that training cycle. And then I'll do a nice little warm down afterwards. And once again, it's not a case of going out to the point where you're fatiguing yourself and you're sore and you're tired and you can't do the session the next day. This is about holding back. If you do feel good, keep it to that 90%. You know what it is. You can see your heart rate once it settles down. It does take the heart rate a little bit to catch up with the interval when you kick off. But add another 4 minutes to the session rather than increase the speed and risk doing, damage. And every hard run does damage to our legs and stuff like that. But you don't want to wake up the next day feeling extremely sore. There's no benefit to that. And consistency of training is what's going to get the improvement. And remember, the one thing that I always say, and I did take away from that little audio that I was listening to again this morning, fitness is gained in the recovery, not the load phases. So anyway, guys, I just wanted to talk about why I feel that the performance has been a little bit different. So just in summary, one, my weight. There's been a massive drop in weight from 104 down to 93, now down to 78. And two, I'm training a lot more in the lower zones. So I'm not going out and wasting time in zone 3 or doing hard intervals all the time. I'm spending as much as 90% really in that zone 2, just building those miles, getting your long rides out on the weekend. And I think your 2 key sessions a week are definitely your long run, your long ride, and I love to do just put the shock headset on in the swims and do a nice continuous 1 hour swim. Don't push it, just roll the arms over, hold your form, concentrate on your breathing. Anyway, guys, I'm getting close to my office, so I'm going to log out for now. If you've if you want, subscribe to the channel. I'll place updates every now and again. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to throw them down in the comments. I will answer them. And be safe out there in training. Enjoy the day, guys. Bye.